You can also have a variable set, okay, which can be like count variable and starts with 0. Okay. Now from here, if I want to return something and if I want the values of this count to change, okay, how do you think it can be changed? It can only be accessed within the scope of this function. Okay. According to JavaScript, this variable can only be accessed within the function where it is declared over. If I have a variable over here, these both differ. Okay. This variable comes under global scope and it can be accessed by any function. But this variable becomes a local variable and it can only be accessed within the scope of this function. Okay. Now consider I'm trying to return a function from here, which is supposed to increase the count value. Okay. Which is supposed to just increase the count of this function and give you the count. Okay. In this scenario, what will happen is if you create counter and if you keep increasing the value of it, you'll always get the latest counter. Okay. When I just call this function, what would happen? I would get a reference of function, which is this function. Okay. When I write this specific function returns me another function, which supposed to do this operation. Now, if I keep calling the counter instance again and again, okay, what would counter instance have? It will have the reference to the function. If I keep calling it, the value of counter value should increase. Okay. And there is no way, no function where this value of count can be changed apart from this line. Any function from outside cannot change the value of count, which is given inside the counter. Okay. So consider I have a function, say fake counter. This guy is coming and changing the value of global count. It reduces it by 1. Okay. So there is no way it can come and hinder or change the value which is inside this counter function. Okay. In this way, what happened is this variable is always safe and secure in the context of counter function. Okay. You can also return an object of functions. Okay. You can return multiple functions from here and then you can use them. You can say add function, or you can say increment function count plus equals to 1, decrement function count minus equals to 1. Okay. And get counter return count. Okay. You can also do this and return different functions from the counter function itself. Okay. In this way, what can happen is you can multiply do different operations over this count, and there is no way any other function or any other code can come and change the value of this. Okay. This also represents, or this also closely relate to the concept of abstraction. Okay. Which is there in object-oriented programming. Are you all aware of object-oriented programming, guys? Okay. Okay, guys. So I see there are many people who don't understand object-oriented programming. So I'll just give you a very short uh, introduction to what is object-oriented programming. It would be a very short and very concise one. Okay. So guys, everyone on this call is a human being, right? So we all are human beings. We have taken birth on earth, and then we have few attributes. We can talk, we can shout, we can walk. Okay, we have two hands. We all have a great smile. We have few hair on the head. Okay, we have certain actions. Now, if I talk about human being, this human being has few attributes. It can perform certain functions. Okay, it has got attributes and it can perform few functions. Okay, now this combination, okay, while a human being is born, we have all of these attributes and function. With increment in time or with moving ahead in time, we incur or we induce many other different habits. Few may be students, few may turn out to be teachers, few may turn out to be employees, and so on. Okay, so what happens in, if I talk about object oriented programming, objects here refer to real world objects. Okay, when I say real world object, so everything around you is a object and it can be in multiple counts. Okay, so there is a way to create these objects, right? So there is some certain instructions that are written to create objects. So if I talk about human beings, DNA has got all the instruction of how a kid should look like. Okay, so DNA is nothing but it's a gene in your body which has got all the information of how your eyes may look like, how may your feet color, race, nose, everything. It is induced from your parents. Okay, it has got all the information. So you can say DNA is a blueprint to create human being. Okay, so this DNA information will have all the attributes that will result or that will tell when you get born, like how you should look like. Okay, let's go to a more non-realistic example where we have got a real world object like a book. Okay, or what is a better example than book? Okay, let's stick to book. Okay, to manufacture a book, you need a machine. Okay, you need a machine which can print the pages, and this printed pages can be then bundled to a book. Okay, if I talk about a book has a cover, it has got author, okay, and it has got data inside it in forms of pages. Okay, cover, author, and maybe chapters would be a better word to use. It may have few chapters. Okay, every chapter may have some content. The actions that you can do with book is turn pages left to right. You can go ahead in the book. You can read the book from backward also. Okay, the content of what needs to be written inside a book is inside, maybe inside a text file or PDF file. Okay, so the manufacturer knows that with one PDF file and this one machine, he can create multiple books. Okay, so until and unless the process is documented somewhere, okay, say to print a book, there is a process. A, get text file. Okay, get the text file to print the book. B, give instructions to machine for printing. And C, get the book. Okay, or bind the book. Okay, so these are the instructions that are given. Okay, or you could call this as a blueprint. Okay, so blueprint means your text file should be in certain format. It should be in PDF. Otherwise, the machine would not know what to print. Cool. So this blueprint will have all the instructions to print a book. Once the book is printed, it has got pages inside it. It starts taking some space on the earth, and it also consumes few resources in terms of paper, ink, and a bit of effort. Okay, So once any stuff starts taking space and time, this becomes an object, or you can say a real world object. Okay. And the master plan to print this blueprint is called a class. Okay. So in object oriented programming, we deal with classes and objects. We declare the skeleton of what is needed inside this class, and then we create objects out from it. Is this concept clear to everyone, guys? Is there anyone who has a doubt? You can raise your hands. Okay, is it, Kishore, is it for object oriented programming or is it for the closures? Which one, object oriented or closures? Okay. Okay. Okay, Ajay, I'll repeat the example of closure. Okay, I'll repeat it with closure and then I'll come to oops. ठीक है, हिंदी में बता देते हैं, कोई दिक्कत नहीं. So guys, is there anyone who is not from a Hindi background and still did not understand closures? Please raise your hands immediately so that I can translate this in Hindi and explain everything. Anyone who didn't understand? Guys, I'll give you just 1 minute. Please be fast. Sudama, Prajapati, both is fine. Is there anyone who has problem with Hindi and did not understand yet? चलो ठीक है, ठीक है, चलो मैं हिंदी में बताता हूँ ये तुम लोग को. ठीक है. Yeah, I do understand that you don't, everybody won't understand Hindi. That's why I started with English. So I'll explain in Hindi once, and then whoever has a problem, I'll explain it once again. But let me start with Hindi because there are many people who did not understand the concept of closures. देखो, सब समझो. जावास्क्रिप्ट में जब भी फाइल्स बनाते हैं हम लोग, ठीक है, जब भी हम लोग कोई भी प्रोग्राम या जब भी हम कोई भी एग्जाम्पल बनाते हैं, आई गेस तुम सब लोगों ने एक एक बार कुछ कुछ छोटा छोटा HTML फाइल, CSS फाइल बनाया है लाइफ में. आप ठीक है, ये एक बहुत सिंपल पैकेज रहता है जिसके अंदर हमारे पास एक HTML फाइल रहती है, एक जावास्क्रिप्ट फाइल रहती है और एक CSS फाइल रहती है. ये तीनों फाइल का कॉम्बिनेशन बन के एक स्टैटिक वेबसाइट बनती है. ठीक है, स्टैटिक वेबसाइट एक बहुत सिंपल एक बहुत सिंपल पैकेज रहता है जिसके अंदर बहुत ज्यादा मूवमेंट नहीं होता है डायनामिक कंटेंट का. कंटेंट बैकएंड से आ सकता है, सर्वर से आ सकता है. इसमें कैसा रहता है, सिर्फ और सिर्फ कुछ कंटेंट होता है वो दिखता है एंड बहुत मिनिमलिस्टिक जावास्क्रिप्ट चलती है. ठीक है, तो हर वेबसाइट के अंदर हमारे पास कैसा रहता है, एक HTML फाइल रहती है और फ्यू जावास्क्रिप्ट और CSS फाइल्स होती है. ठीक है, अगर मैं एक सिंपल जावास्क्रिप्ट फाइल के बारे में बात करूं, ठीक है, तो इस जावास्क्रिप्ट फाइल के अंदर मैं बहुत कुछ लिख सकता हूं. मैं कुछ वेरिएबल्स डिक्लेयर कर सकता हूं, मैं कुछ फंक्शंस लिख सकता हूं. ये सबको क्लियर है, राइट गाइस? ये सबको क्लियर है? किसी को किसी में कुछ प्रॉब्लम है? ठीक है, तो अभी क्या है कि अगर मेरे पास HTML फाइल के अंदर कुछ भी कंटेंट लिखा है, जैसे H1 टैग लिखा है, ठीक है, आपके बॉम और डॉम के जब सेशंस हुए होंगे उसमें बता दिया होगा कि आप डॉक्यूमेंट डॉट गेट एलिमेंट बाय ID करो और इसके अंदर आप चेंजेस कर सकते हो. ठीक है, जो भी इस HTML के अंदर, जैसे ये H1 टैग है, मैं इसको एक ID दे देता हूँ ABC एंड मैं इस ID को यहाँ पिक करके और मान लो कि इसके अंदर के कंटेंट को चेंज कर देता हूँ जावास्क्रिप्ट के थ्रू. ठीक है, बाय मॉडिफाइंग दी डॉम. ओके, मैं इसमें काउंट नाम का वेरिएबल डाल देता हूँ. इज दिस क्लियर गाइस? ठीक है, ये काउंट नाम का वेरिएबल यहाँ पे 2 मिनट के लिए ये दो फंक्शंस को भूल जाओ और इस वेरिएबल को गौर से देखो. ठीक है, हमारे पास एक काउंट नाम का वेरिएबल है यहाँ पे. ठीक है, तो ये काउंट नाम के वेरिएबल में कुछ वैल्यू है. मैंने क्या किया, इसको तुमको दिखाने के लिए HTML फाइल में डाल दी। ठीक है, इस HTML फाइल के अंदर मैं मल्टीपल स्क्रिप्ट फाइल्स को लोड कर सकता हूँ। ठीक है, जैसे इंडेक्स है, index2 मैंने करके एक फाइल बनाई है जो यहाँ पे है। ठीक है, इसके अंदर भी मैं जावास्क्रिप्ट लिख सकता हूँ। तो जो फाइल लोड होने का जो प्रोसीजर होता है या जो कंटेंट जैसे HTML CSS और जावास्क्रिप्ट में चलता है, इट्स ऑल स्क्रिप्टिंग। ठीक है, तो ये HTML फाइल भी कैसे लोड होती है, जिस मोमेंट पे जिसको लिखा जाता है उस टाइम पे ये लोड हो जाती है। ठीक है, XML भी ऐसे ही पार्स होता है। तो जब ये पहली स्क्रिप्ट लिखते हैं तो ये पहली स्क्रिप्ट के अंदर का जावास्क्रिप्ट लोड होता है। फिर जब मैं दूसरी स्क्रिप्ट लिखता हूँ तो दूसरी स्क्रिप्ट के अंदर का जावास्क्रिप्ट लोड होता है। ठीक है, तो जैसे मैंने यहाँ पे where count equals to 100 लिखा है, ठीक है, जैसे मैंने यहाँ पे where count equals to 100 लिखा है, वैसे ही मैं इस index2 के अंदर भी इस काउंट को एक्सेस कर सकता हूँ। ठीक है, इसको ध्यान से देखना, ये वाली जो लाइन लिख रहा हूं मैं, इसको बहुत ध्यान से देखना। ठीक है, मैं यहाँ पे सिर्फ और सिर्फ एक console.log काउंट लिख देता हूँ। ठीक है, और ये कौन सी फाइल है, ये फाइल नंबर 2 है, index.js। तुम सबको यहाँ पे दिख रहा होगा कि इसके पास भी काउंट का एक्सेस है। ठीक है, तो मैं जो मर्जी चाहूं इस काउंट के साथ कर सकता हूं, मैं काउंट को अजय बना सकता हूं। ठीक है, और मैं ये की ये चीज लिख भी सकता हूं, किसमें, ये जो मैंने यहां लिखा था ABC के अंदर, मैं काउंट की वैल्यू को इधर चेंज करके और इसको भी चेंज कर सकता हूं। ठीक है, जो मेरे पास 100 आना चाहिए था, इस दूसरी फाइल ने उसका उस वेरिएबल के साथ में खिलवाड़ कर दिया और उसकी वैल्यू चेंज करके अजय कर दी। ठीक है, तो ग्लोबल वेरिएबल्स में हमेशा एक इशू रहता है कि उसको कोई भी एक्सेस कर सकता है और उसको कोई भी चेंज कर सकता है। क्या इस कॉन्सेप्ट में किसी को डाउट है? ठीक है, तो अगर इस कॉन्सेप्ट में डाउट नहीं है तो ये बहुत क्लियर हो गया कि इस वेरिएबल के साथ, ग्लोबल वेरिएबल के साथ कोई भी चेंजेस कर सकता है, ये सेफ नहीं है। ठीक है, एनी फंक्शन, एनी वेरिएबल चेंज, एनी फंक्शन कॉल, एनीथिंग कैन कम एंड रिप्लेस द वैल्यू ऑफ दिस वेरिएबल। कल को एक बहुत सिंपल एग्जांपल दे रहा हूं, कल को ये काउंट की वैल्यू अगर किसी सर्वर के वेरिएबल से आ रही है और सर्वर से कोई गार्बेज डेटा आया, तो वो गार्बेज डेटा यूआई पे दिखना शुरू हो जाए। ठीक है, तो ये क्या रहता है, ये वेरिएबल बहुत अनसेफ होता है व्हेन इट कम्स टू ग्लोबल कॉन्सेप्ट। ठीक है, नाउ कंसिडर अ पॉइंट कि एक index.js फाइल मैं बना रहा हूं और index2.js फाइल अजय बना रहा है। ठीक है, हम दोनों ने ही एक टाइप के वेरिएबल नेम को यूज किया है। अजय को भी काउंट वेरिएबल यूज करना था, मुझे भी काउंट वेरिएबल यूज करना है। ठीक है, तो अजय ने सीधा सीधा काउंट वेरिएबल उठा के और किसी और डॉम के अंदर डाल दिया। ठीक है, बहुत एक हाइपोथेटिकल एग्जांपल है कि एक फंक्शन से काउंट की वैल्यू चेंज हो रही थी, बट सिंस काउंट एक ग्लोबल वेरिएबल है जो कि पहली वाली फाइल में एग्जिस्ट करता है और दूसरी में नहीं कर रहा था या किसी कारणवश काउंट की वैल्यू चेंज नहीं हुई, तो जो वैल्यू ग्लोबली डिक्लेयर थी वही वो वैल्यू यूज करने लगेगा। ठीक है, देयर इज ऑलवेज अ कंफ्यूजन। ठीक है, मैं एक टाइप का वेरिएबल पूरे फंक्शन के अंदर, पूरी फाइल के अंदर याद रखना पड़ेगा कि मैं कहाँ रीयूज कर सकता हूँ और मैं कहाँ नहीं कर सकता हूँ। ठीक है, तो ग्लोबल वेरिएबल को आके कोई भी बदल सकता है। ठीक है, एंड ये चीज आप सब लोगों को क्लियर है। अब एक बात बहुत गौर से नोटिस करना, अगर मैं इसको प्राइवेट बनाना चाहूं, मैं चाहूं कि इस काउंट को सिर्फ मैं और मैं ही चेंज कर सकूं, ठीक है, या ये वेरिएबल सिर्फ मेरे ही हाथ में रहे, इसको दुनिया की कोई भी और ताकत आके चेंज ना करे। ठीक है अजय, प्लीज पहले डाउट। अजय डाउट पूछो। हाँ,
हेलो सर।
हाँ अजय बोलो।
सर अभी अभी आपने बोला कि काउंट, अगर काउंट वेरिएबल है, ग्लोबल है, वो चेंज कर सकते हैं अगर
हम्म,
हमने वो वेरिएबल कॉन्स्ट से डिक्लेयर किया। समझो कॉन्स्ट काउंट इज इक्वल टू समथिंग।
ठीक है,
कॉन्स्ट कॉन्स्ट की प्रॉपर्टी है कि वो रीडिक्लेयर डिक्लेयर नहीं कर सकते।
ठीक है,
तो हम जेएस में वो चेंज कर सकते हैं क्या उसकी वैल्यू?
ठीक है, इसमें दो चीज है। ठीक है, बहुत गौर से सुनना, आपको काउंट और लेट पढ़ाया गया था, राइट? क्या आपको
कॉन्स्ट और
क्या आपको ये बताया गया था कि काउंट जो कॉन्स्ट वैल्यूज होती हैं, उसको अगर हम किसी ऑब्जेक्ट का रेफरेंस बनाते हैं तो वो अपडेट हो सकती है?
ये नहीं पता था मुझे।
ठीक है, दूसरी चीज ये है कि कॉन्स्ट एंड लेट आर कॉन्सेप्ट्स ऑफ ES6। ठीक है, आज भी बहुत सारे ब्राउजर्स ऐसे हैं जो ES6 समझते नहीं। ठीक है, आज भी सारा कोड रिकम्पाइल होके ES5 में जाता है। ES5 क्या, एक पुराना वर्जन ऑफ जावास्क्रिप्ट है जो ऑलमोस्ट हर ब्राउजर पे चलता है। ठीक है, तो हम क्या करते हैं, हम पहले ये समझते हैं कि प्लेन जावास्क्रिप्ट कैसे चलती है, एंड देन हम इन सब चीजों में जाते हैं, क्योंकि ये बेटरमेंट्स हैं जो फ्यूचर में आए थे। ठीक है, फ्यूचर इन द सेंस कि आज भी ES5 बहुत ब्राउजर्स पे सपोर्टेड होती है। ठीक है, तो ये बहुत ही एक अच्छा कॉन्सेप्ट है कि हम कॉन्स्ट यूज कर सकते हैं, प्रोवाइडेड हमारे पास ES6 का सपोर्ट होना चाहिए हर ब्राउजर के अंदर। ठीक है, हमारे पास ES6 का सपोर्ट होना चाहिए हर ब्राउजर के अंदर। एंड सेकेंडली, ये एक ऑब्जेक्ट टाइप का रेफरेंस नहीं होना चाहिए, विच इज योर एरे और ऑब्जेक्ट। ठीक है, अगर एरे ऑफ ऑब्जेक्ट है और इसके अंदर कोई की वैल्यू पेयर है तो वो चेंज हो सकता है। ठीक है, अगर मैं यहाँ से एक की कोई यूज कर रहा हूँ, ठीक है, मैं काउंट के अंदर की को चेंज कर सकता हूँ। ठीक है, मैं उसका रेफरेंस चेंज नहीं कर सकता। तो अगर अभी मैं अगर कंसोल डॉट लॉग काउंट करूंगा, तो इसके अंदर की अगर मैं डेमो वैल्यू यूज कर रहा हूं तो दैट कैन बी री रिटर्न। ठीक है,
ओके सर, गॉट इट।
ठीक है, गॉट इट। इसको मैं सेव करता हूँ और यहाँ पे कंसोल पे आउटपुट देखो, ये आ गया, डेमो 2 हो गया। सपोज इट वाज सपोज टू बी 1। कूल, ओके। सो फॉर दिस केस, और या ये सिनेरियो के लिए, अगर मैं सिंपल वैर के बारे में बात करता हूं तो ये ग्लोबल वेरिएबल है और इसके साथ कोई भी चेंजेस कर सकता है। तो उस चीज को अवॉइड करने के लिए, वो सेफ्टी लाने के लिए, मैं एक क्लोजर बना सकता हूँ। ठीक है, मैं क्लोजर कुछ ऐसा जादुई कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं है गाइस, क्लोजर को बहुत ध्यान से समझो। क्लोजर के अंदर जो वेरिएबल डिक्लेयर्ड है, मतलब ठीक है, 1 मिनट के लिए सब भूल जाओ, क्लोजर का कॉन्सेप्ट भूल जाओ, और मेरे को सिर्फ एक सिंपल सी चीज बताओ। ठीक है, सिंपल सी चीज ये है कि अगर मैं फंक्शन के अंदर कोई वेरिएबल यूज करता हूं, फंक्शन कैलकुलेट टू नंबर्स। ठीक है, अगर मैं ये फंक्शन लिखता हूं और यहां पे मैंने 2 नंबर डिक्लेयर किए, नंबर 1 इक्वल्स टू 100, नंबर 2 इक्वल्स टू 200। ठीक है, यहां पे मैंने 2 वेरिएबल डिक्लेयर किए हैं। क्या इन वेरिएबल्स को मैं कहीं भी और एक्सेस कर सकता हूं फंक्शन स्कोप के अलावा? हाँ या ना? क्या बात कर रहे हो किशोर, सुदामा? कहां से एक्सेस करोगे इन इन 2 वेरिएबल्स को? इस फंक्शन ब्लॉक स्कोप के अलावा कहां एक्सेस कर सकते हो? किशोर ऐसे नहीं करना है, चीजें क्लैरिटी से करनी है, ये चीजें लॉजिकल है। ठीक है, इन दोनों वेरिएबल्स को मैं कहीं भी यूज नहीं कर सकता, चाहे कुछ भी हो जाए, एक्सेप्ट द फंक्शनल स्कोप। ठीक है, सनी, आई हैव एक्सप्लेन्ड दिस इन इंग्लिश। इफ I'm not sure, like there is a lot of audience who don't understand proper English. So if you have any issues, let me know. I'll explain you separately. Okay, sure, I'll explain the difference. Okay, where is not a block scope. Okay, okay, where is not block scope? Is it? So do you think number 1 is accessible outside this function, Sachin, Gautam? Then how is it not block scoped? So Pratik, do you think number 1 is accessible? Where is a functional scope and it is also not block scoped? Okay, okay, okay. So what were you taught about where, guys? I see there is a lot of confusion. What was taught to you about where? Okay. Rahul, I did not understand your question. What's your question? Block scope also cannot access. So if I declare any variables inside this function, Rahul, if I declare any variables inside a function body, they can only be accessed within the scope of this function. You cannot access these variables outside the scope of this function. Where is a functional scope can be updated and redeclared in the scope. Okay, so this is a function. Here are the variable declaration. Okay, scope of this variable is within this function. Easy to understand, Vishal? What will happen when this is written, Vishal? So let and const came in existence because of okay. So before jumping into everything, have you understood the concept of hoisting, guys? So what is hoisting, Vishal? Vishal, what do you think hoisting is? And what will happen in case of this declaration? How will hoisting work in this? Yes, Ajit, please go ahead. Yes, Ajit.
Yeah, so as our instructor taught us that in the case of hosting,
Yeah.
suppose we have declared a variable in the keyword as keyword using by var, okay,
Okay.
right?
Okay. Mhm.
So in the hosting, suppose we have declared a variable
Mhm.
as in the keyword as var, right? So
Okay.
it is not mandatory that we have to declare first and then we can use, right? So
Correct.
suppose we have assigned a value to a to a variable in the var keyword, and
Okay.
we are declaring the variable after the assigning the value, right?
Okay.
So it will be accepted by the JavaScript, because what happens in the hosting, it automatically, when we declare a variable, it
Mhm.
automatically is automatically get the statement to the top of the function, right? When we declare
The
a
top
variable,
of the function, right?
top of the function, it automatically get the top of the function. Like suppose as we say sometime, right, that flag hosting, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
means wherever we declare the variable, in the case of var keyboard, it is
Okay.
automatically get to the top of the function, and and when we assign a value to a variable, it is initialized at the time of assigning, right?
Okay.
So this called hosting. It is possible, I think, in the case of only var, not in the case of let and const.
Okay. That's great. What will happen in this case if I write number one equals to 100 without having a var keyword?
Yeah, without having a var keyword.
Yeah.
I think as we taught by instructor, that suppose we did not declare a variable from
Mhm.
any kind of condition, it is automatically declared as a var, I think, right?
Var in which scope?
In which scope? In
Mhm.
functional scope, actually, or you can
So
say
do you
local
think
scope.
number one is not accessible outside?
I think yes, because if it is declared inside the function, so it is not accessible outside, right?
Okay. Let's
Yeah,
try this.
yeah.
Okay. It's accessible outside the functional scope.
So it means, I think it is already declared before the function, I think.
No, it's not declared anywhere.
So I think there is another condition actually, but in the case of hosting, as I understood that, we don't have to declare the variable first. We can assign a value first, then we can declare the variable in the case of where, and it will working as in normal condition.
So what will happen in this scenario?
Yeah, I'm little confused in this case when we did not declare the variable against any type of keyword. Can you please explain me?
Sorry.
I said I'm unable to understand that in this type of keyword the variable is declared. The first one, number one.
In which type of
Keyword.
keyword?
The number one variable is declared.
So it doesn't has any var keyword, no?
Yeah, we don't have any var keyword here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so which type of condition is existing here?
I am not able to understand your question.
I said we did not use any type of keyword to declare a variable, right? And it is accessible outside the function also, right?
Yes, it is. Is it accessible? First of all, is it accessible?
That is okay, but you know that in the case of other type of keywords like let and const, right? Whenever we declare a variable.
Just 1 second. See, we are discussing about var. Do not go to let and const. Just forget let and const for one. These are like a different concept. Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
The point is when you're talking about var, stay in ES5. Do not go to ES6 without having what is there in ES5, because ultimately let and const are going to convert into var. Var is the ultimate destination for everything. Okay. So let's stay in var and understand what happens. What happens if I don't declare this as a variable? Let's try to print this and see. Okay. Let me clear the console. Let me remove all the unnecessary things. Okay. And then let's see what it prints for you. Okay, there is a error on the console which says number one is not defined. Okay, it says number one is not defined. Cool. So what will actually happen in the concept of hoisting when I write number one there inside the function? How will hoisting work if you do not even declare any kind of var or anything? Now I think we are deviating a lot from the topic. What will happen when I write this statement inside function? Ajay, I think you are also on mute. Do you have an answer to this? Ajay, Vishal, I think Vishal has great understanding of these things. Can you explain me, Vishal, what will happen in this scenario?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain me what will happen in this scenario? Exactly how the hosting will work here?
सर होस्टिंग तो वैसे जनरली यही होती है कि जब भी कोई वेरिएबल अगर डिक्लेयर नहीं किया हुआ है और पहले हमने उसको इनिशियलाइज कर दिया हुआ है तो वो डिक्लेयर अपने आप हो जाता है और डिक्लेयर को टॉप पे ले जाता है,
टॉप पे फंक्शनल स्कोप पे ले जाता है. इट मींस ये नंबर वन वेरिएबल सिर्फ इस फंक्शन के अंदर एक्सेसिबल होगा, राइट?
यस सर.
तो अगर मैं यहाँ पे console.log लिखूंगा तो होस्टिंग कैसे चली होगी इसके लिए? जस्ट अ सिंपल एक्सप्लेनेशन.
तो सर इसको नंबर वन को एज ए वेरिएबल लेगा, ये एज ए वैर लेगा.
हाँ, वैर लेगा.
और उसके बाद जैसे यहाँ पे हमने इसको डिक्लेयर नहीं किया हुआ है कि नंबर वन हमारा कौन सा ये टाइप है, तो इस केस में ये नंबर वन को एज ए वैर लेगा और यहाँ पर हमारा नंबर वन प्रिंट हो जाएगा.
ठीक है, ये हो जाएगा. अभी 2 मिनट पहले जब तक मैं डिक्लेयर नहीं कर रहा था, जब तक सब कुछ सही चल रहा था, ठीक है, जब तक ये एरर दे रहा था. जैसे ही ये फंक्शन कॉल हुआ, ठीक है, अचानक से दूसरे वाले console.log ने सारा आउटपुट सही से देना शुरू कर दिया. ठीक है थोड़ा सा फनी है जावास्क्रिप्ट.
यस सर.
ठीक है, तो ये कौन से फंक्शनल स्कोप पे पुश हो गया? ठीक है. Now there is
Yes,
one
sir.
thing, अगर मैं इसको var बना देता हूँ,
Yes, sir.
तो according to your definition, number 1 should not be accessible outside.
Yes, sir.
ठीक है. Let's save this. 100 बन गया. This becomes the functional scope for this variable. It is accessible within this function and it is
Yes.
not accessible outside.
Outside function. Yes, sir.
Okay. So for this thing, if I do not declare it with var, it tries to assume and assigns it to a value which is available in the global scope. Okay. And
Yes,
it assigns 100 value to a variable in the global scope directly. So when you do not have any var keyword before a variable declaration in anywhere in any functions inside JavaScript, it will try to push it towards the global scope.
Yes, sir.
Okay. जब मैं var लिखना शुरू करूंगा इधर, ठीक है, या मैं इसके नीचे गलती से भी अगर var number 1 लिख देता हूं, तो this starts to hoist itself and now it will become a functional scope declaration.
Yes,
ठीक है.
sir.
अब ये वापस एरर आना शुरू हो गया नंबर 1 को लेकर. ठीक है. तो आई होप at least everyone is clear with functional scope and how variables var work in JavaScript. Cool.
Yes, sir.
ठीक है. Now it is very much clear कि number 1 जो variable है, it is only accessible inside this function. Okay. And it cannot be accessed by anyone outside the calculate two numbers function. I tried to access it, it throws me an error that it is not defined. Okay. To preserve the value and only make sure that this value can only be changed by any subroutine which I have written inside this functional scope, makes this number 1 secure. It makes this variable private. Okay. So as compared to global variable, which was getting edited or modified by everyone outside, this variable can only be changed within this functional scope. Okay. This can only be changed within this functional scope. So if I write number 1 equals to 1000, or if I make it 2000, 20,000, and if I call this function, this variable only got modified within the functional scope. Okay. So if you see the output, it comes as 20,000. Okay. Now, if you look at this from a very higher perspective, you can make this variable private. Private in the sense this value can only change with the help of this function. No one else can change it. Okay. So what I do is I give you a power. Okay. I give you a power that if you call, okay, if you call this as a add function from the reference of calculate two numbers, only then this can give you, or this can change, or it can edit the value of the variable declared inside it. Okay. Or if I make it little simpler, I will give you a function which will always increase the value by 1 and return you the fresh counter value. Okay. I'll make this as count for obvious reasons. Okay. Calculate fresh counter. So what this function is supposed to do is, okay, look at it very carefully. I guess you guys understand that you can return everything from a function. Okay. Before jumping into it, say I have a function add which takes in value num1, num2. Okay. This function can return you the sum of num1 and num2 by simply writing this. Right, guys? Pretty simple, right? You can also return a function from a function. Okay. Now, how does this magic works is, or how will this actually look like? Okay. Say you have something called as adder. Okay. What this is supposed to do is, whenever, see, you have a variable sum equals to 0. Okay. Return function number. Sum plus equals to number. Return sum. Okay. Now, if I talk about adder function, what it is doing, just have a look at it carefully. This is a function declaration. It has got a variable declaration called as sum equals to 0. Okay. Can this sum be accessed by anyone outside this function scope? Chat, come on. No. Okay. So this sum variable cannot be accessed by anyone outside the adder scope. Okay. Now try to understand this fact that if this variable cannot be accessed, which means I can simply call it like a private variable that can only be accessed within the function scope. Okay. Now, if I'm writing anything inside this, I can access this variable. Okay. And if I'm trying to access it from outside, no one can come and change the value. Okay. So only one guy can change the variable's value, which is the function scope itself. Okay. And very smartly, I have returned a function from here. Okay. Now, how function works? Okay. How function works is you call and you get an output. Okay. So if I call this function add with 1, 2, it has actually given me some output, which is 3. Right? So if you see the console, you can see you have got an output 3. Clear? Now assume that when you're calling this function adder, okay, now say my mind equals to adder. Now when I write this line, what has happened in the background is this function got called here. Okay, this function has got called and it has returned me another function. It has returned me another function which is similar to this. Okay, now I have this function available inside this variable. Easy. So you have this function inside this variable. Now once you call this function with different values, okay, what is actually getting called is this function. Are you understanding this thing? Yes, Pratik. Yes, closure means function inside a function. So are you getting this fact? ये सब ऊपर से तो नहीं जा रहा? किशोर समझ में आया? प्रजापति जी समझ में आया? प्रजापति जी कहाँ हो? सुदामा क्या नाम था आपका? सॉरी, अरे प्रजापति जी कहाँ हैं? जवाब ही नहीं दे रहे हो यार। सुदामा भैया समझ में आया? अरे बहुत बढ़िया, शाबाश। ठीक है, तो अभी क्या हुआ कि मैंने यहाँ से एक फंक्शन रिटर्न किया है। तो फंक्शन क्या करेगा? अब मेरे पास सिर्फ इसका ही एक्सेस है और एक जादू की वजह से, क्यों? क्योंकि लेक्सिकल स्कोप एक्सेसिबल था इस फंक्शन के पास। तो जब भी ये फंक्शन को कॉल करूंगा, सिर्फ इसी फंक्शन के पास इस वेरिएबल का एक्सेस होगा। ठीक है, सिर्फ इसी फंक्शन के पास इस वेरिएबल का एक्सेस होगा। तो ये वेरिएबल एक तरीके से प्राइवेट वेरिएबल हो गया। इस वेरिएबल को केवल यही फंक्शन स्कोप के अंदर डिक्लेयर कर सकते हैं, एक्सेस कर सकते हैं, सॉरी, और यही फंक्शन के पास शक्ति है इसके साथ छेड़खानी करने की। क्लियर? इसलिए क्लोजर का कॉन्सेप्ट आया था कि हमें वेरिएबल्स को थोड़ा सेफगार्ड करना था। ठीक है, मेनली यही था कि हम नहीं चाहते थे कि कोई भी आके वेरिएबल की वैल्यू को कैसे भी चेंज कर जाए, और थोड़ा सिक्योर करना था इसको। ठीक है, इसका एक प्रो तो हमने देख लिया कि ये फायदा है क्लोजर यूज करने का, इसका एक नुकसान भी है। ठीक है, अगर मैंने ये लाइन लिख के छोड़ दी ना, तो हमेशा मेरे मेमोरी में ये वाला वेरिएबल डिक्लेयर्ड रहेगा। इसको डिलीट करने के लिए कोई भी नहीं आ सकता। ठीक है, इट मीन्स दे आर अ लिटिल कॉस्टली इन टर्म्स ऑफ मेमोरी। ठीक है, एंड रिसोर्सेज, दे कंज्यूम योर रिसोर्सेस। इजी गाइस, समझ में आया? जैसे दूसरे वेरिएबल में जावास्क्रिप्ट का एक कॉन्सेप्ट होता है गार्बेज कलेक्शन का। ठीक है, इसके अंदर वो चीज थोड़ी सी सही से नहीं चल पाती, क्योंकि कॉन्सेप्चुअली इस फंक्शन एडर के पास या इस फंक्शन के पास जो स्कोप है, ठीक है, इसके पास जो सम को ये पॉइंट कर रहा है, वो हमेशा जिंदा रहना चाहिए ताकि उसको हम एक्सेस कर सके। तो मैं द मोमेंट आई राइट दिस, व्हेन आई कॉल दिस, it starts taking memory and this closure will always have the value of this sum. ठीक है, तो ये मेमोरी में हमेशा लाई करेगा। तो क्लोजर्स आर लिटिल closures are little costly when it comes to performance and resource consumption. Okay, it has got its benefit, it has also got its cons. Guys, is it clear to everyone? Okay, so is there anyone who has any doubts regarding this? Anyone, so that we can move to our next topic? So to be pretty precise, if someone asks you in your interviews, okay, so you have understood the concept, but sometimes the words don't come out. I'll send you the code. Okay, sometimes the words don't come out. Okay, so when I was explaining you object-oriented programming, for a moment, just forget what I tried to explain you. We'll definitely learn this in your later lectures. But before this, okay, before this, if you talk to me, if you want that specific answer which the interviewer wants to understand, okay, emphasize on this word private variable or data encapsulation. You can tell what happens is this sum variable becomes private and it cannot be accessed by everyone or any other function outside. So this variable is a safe variable. Okay, and it can only be changed by the scope of adder function or count function, whatever we had. Okay, so this is one concept which talks about data encapsulation. This is an object-oriented concept. When you learn object-oriented programming, relate to this fact, and when you give interviews, be precise. Okay, this is what the interviewer wants to hear from your mouth. Okay, and B, you have understood. Everyone can give you this explanation: function inside a function, function returning a function, but the understanding is more important than this. Okay, so just take care of these keywords and use it directly in your interviews. You will ace it. Okay, no one will come and ask you, or no one will, I think, proceed further and scratch your head beyond this, because they would assume that you understand things better. Okay. Which function? Adder function. Okay. So if you keep adding this, whatever comes in your mind, right, it will keep adding to the counter and it will give you values. Okay. So what this function is ideally doing, this counter function is doing this is actually acting like your mind to remember the last number and add it to the sum. Okay. So what will happen is this sum value is initiated with value 0. Every time you call this function with a new value, it will go and change the var of the sum and it will return. So this is kind of a memorizer. It is remembering what you had remembered as your last sum, and it keeps adding the new values that you give to it. Okay, so if you add 2000 after this, it will keep remembering and it will keep adding the values. Okay, so this becomes 2102. Easy guys. Ajit, samajh mein aaya? Okay, I'll share this code with you as well. So I'm dropping this link in your chat box. You can go and have a look at this. Okay, you can play around with this by forking it. Okay, but yeah, this is like a very simple explanation of how things work. The second thing that we had today was type coercion. Okay, so Ajay, what is type coercion? Very good. Good. Sunny, would you like to answer this question for everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What is type coercion according to you? Sunny, are you there? Okay. I think I'm not able to find. Vishal, would you like to explain this to the chat, everyone? Yeah. So I have asked you to unmute. Explain it. Like, what is type coercion? What do you think type coercion is? Anyone? Ajay is not there. automatically converts. Anjali, would you like to go ahead and explain? Yeah, Ajit, definitely. Unable to mute. I think there's some problem.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, Ajit, you're audible.
Yeah. So, so you are asking about the type coercion, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So in the case when we compare two types of data types in the JavaScript, so what happened here? JavaScript automatically convert the type of a particular data to the respect of another data type, right?
Okay.
So suppose we are adding the two type of data. The first one is string and the second one is number, right?
Okay.
And it works from the left to right sequence, right? The direction is from left to right. So if the first one is string and second one is number,
Okay.
so what will happen here in the case of coercion, the second one will also be converted as a string.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So when we put the console.log, it will give the total output to add both of data as a string. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mean to say when I print this, I'll get ABC 2000?
Yeah.
Okay, great, good answer. Okay, I'll do this in my browser console for better visibility. Okay, when I write this, it gives me ABC 2000. You're absolutely right, Ajit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there is another condition is,
yeah,
suppose we are adding two type of integers or two type of numbers to a string, right? And the numbers are written or you can say numbers are defined before the string variable, right?
Okay.
So what happened here, as I said, it works from the left to right direction, right? It calculates the data from left to right. So what JavaScript will done, it will pick the first number as a number, right?
Okay.
And it will pick the second number also as a number.
Okay.
So in the case of calculation, it will add both of the numbers first because they are the data type of number, right? And after this, when you get the third variable as an integer, right, then it will convert the sum of the first two number into integer, and then it will sum up both of these, right?
Very good.
So
in that case, if I write this problem in front of you, where a equals to 2000, where b equals to 4000 in string, so will it give me 6000 or will it give me 2000, 4000?
2000, 4000.
Why?
Because in this case, second one is string, na? Second one string. But suppose before 4000, there was two type of numbers, right? Suppose 2000 and another type of value, right?
Okay.
Then what it will do? It will do the sum of first two numbers, right? And then it will convert the sum of the numbers into string because third one is string and it is going to compare the sum to the string, right? Then it will show that, like suppose you have taken a value 2000 and second value is suppose 1000.
Okay.
And the third one value is in the string 4000.
No, I just want to understand from perspective of two values. What will happen in this scenario?
In this scenario, the same will happen, right? Because when we compare a string to a number, it automatically convert the number to a string.
But if according to your definition, if we move from left to right, left is my number, right is my string, the string should have got converted to number, right?
It will convert first number to the string, but suppose there was another number before the string, right? There were two number or three numbers.
No. I'm just talking about this specific problem. Okay. Ajit, according to this scenario, कंक्लूजन पे आओ अजीत भाई, ठीक है? अगर ए में नंबर है और बी में स्ट्रिंग है, आपके डेफिनेशन के अकॉर्डिंग मैं लेफ्ट टू राइट चल रहा हूँ, तो लेफ्ट में मेरा नंबर है, तो राइट वाला स्ट्रिंग को भी नंबर में कन्वर्ट होना चाहिए था, वो क्यों नहीं हुआ?
I think sir there is a by default type of conversion because जब दो values होती है ना यहाँ पे like string है और number है तो
by default नहीं, जावास्क्रिप्ट में कुछ by default नहीं होता है, सबके पीछे लॉजिक होता है. ठीक है, क्या लॉजिक हो सकता है? अज्यूम करो.
जैसे मेरी जो नॉलेज में है, मेरे हिसाब से तो यही है, अगर मान लीजिए एक सिंगल वैल्यू नंबर की होती है हमारे पास और एक सिंगल वैल्यू ही स्ट्रिंग की है, तो उस केस में जो नंबर है विल ऑटोमेटिकली कन्वर्ट एज ए नंबर और ट्रीटेड एज ए स्ट्रिंग. इन दिस केस
आप तो आपके हिसाब से लेफ्ट टू राइट चल रहा था ना सिस्टम?
हाँ, चलता तो लेफ्ट टू राइट ही है, दैट इज ओके.
तो फिर ये 2000 ये 4000 नंबर क्यों नहीं हुआ?
उसमें एक कंडीशन ये है कि अगर मान लीजिए लेफ्ट टू राइट में हमारे पास लेफ्ट से शुरू करते हैं, ठीक है? तो लेफ्ट में अगर मान लो एक से ज्यादा नंबर है तो वो दोनों को एज ए नंबर ही ट्रीट करेगा और उनका सम करेगा. लाइक अगर 2000 के बाद 1000 है तो वो पहले 3000 करेगा, फिर उसके बाद देखेगा कि भाई नेक्स्ट इज अ स्ट्रिंग, तो अब उसके लिए दो वैल्यूज है, एक तो पहली जो नंबर में कन्वर्ट हो चुकी है और दूसरी स्ट्रिंग में, अब वो दोनों को एज ए स्ट्रिंग ही ट्रीट करेगा इस केस में.
चलो तो इन दैट केस आपका इसका आउटपुट क्या आएगा फिर, अगर मैं नंबर लिखता हूँ, स्ट्रिंग लिखता हूँ और एक मल्टीप्लाई लिख देता हूँ यहाँ पे, फिर क्या जादू होगा?
मल्टीप्लाई, इसका मेरे को भी आइडिया नहीं है, मैंने सिर्फ प्लस करके देखा है बस। मल्टीप्लाई नहीं किया मैंने कभी, तो एक बार आप चेक कर लो, क्योंकि जो चीज मैंने की नहीं है मैं उस पर कैसे आंसर दूं।
वेरी गुड, गुड आंसर, आई रियली लाइक योर आंसर। कभी भी गलत नहीं देना है लाइफ में आंसर, जब तक हमको जो समझ में आता है उसी पे रहना है, नहीं तो नहीं बोलना है। एग्जैक्टली ये बिल्कुल इंटरव्यू वाला है और एग्जैक्ट तरीका है आंसर करने का। वेरी गुड अचित, आई रियली लाइक।
थैंक यू।
Siddiq, can you help me out here? Why did it give 8 instead of 2? Why did it work differently in this scenario and why did it work differently there? There's some problem in unmuting. Can you unmute yourself, Siddiq? Sachin, are you able to unmute yourself? Check.
Hello.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, Sachin.
सर मेरे कोडिंग ये है कि इसमें ये फर्स्ट वैल्यू को कंसीडर करेंगे सर,
Very
कि
good.
जो मतलब जो भी फर्स्ट वैल्यू वो किस टाइप की है। अगर वो स्ट्रिंग है तो वो स्ट्रिंग में कन्वर्ट कर देगा सेकंड जो भी नंबर रहेगा उसको, और अगर वो नंबर है तो वो नंबर में चेंज कर देगा।
वो नंबर है तो नंबर में चेंज कर देगा, राइट। बट जब हम अब सचिन के अकॉर्डिंग अगर मैं यहाँ पे प्लस मार दूं तो ये क्या देगा मेरे को? 24 देगा कि मेरे को 6 देगा?
6 देगा सर।
हाँ
6
6 देगा, बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली ये मेरे को 24 देने वाला है, ठीक है। और अगर ये की ये चीज मैं मल्टीप्लाई के साथ करता हूं, ठीक है, तो ये कुछ 8 देना शुरू कर देता है।
सर मैंने कुछ पढ़ा था इसमें, इसमें अलग अलग मैथमेटिकल ऑपरेशंस के लिए अलग अलग कुछ रूल रहते हैं।
राहुल वर्मा के पास गुड आंसर है। राहुल, वॉट एवर वी राइट विथ प्लस इट विल बी स्ट्रिंग, ठीक है। राहुल, इलैबोरेट योर आंसर।
Yes, sir. Hi.
हाँ राहुल।
Actually, this operator works here. So, like, if you add with 2 with 4 in a like string, it will convert that 2 in the string. If you add that 2 plus 4 without that string, it will give you 6.
6.
So, yes, sir. But if in any way there is a string value, it will convert that other value to the string. But it will not work in the case of multiply, divide, minus. It will return some other.
क्या कर दिया? अभी तो सही आंसर देते देते गलत क्यों पहुंच जाते हो मेरे भाई? सुनो everyone, okay, this there is no magic in left to right operation. There is a magic with this operator plus. Okay, this operator is a little joker type of operator. Okay, this will add to numbers, it will concat to string also. So there is this concept of operator overloading in JavaScript. This guy can add to numbers and this guy can concat to strings also. Okay, so what happens is consider from a perspective, okay, where just try to imagine this scenario. Okay, from JavaScript's perspective we go from left to right. Okay, if this operator plus can concat to strings and if it gets a string on the right side, what it does, it understands कि मैं तो ये operation कर सकता हूँ, I can do this operation. Okay, because I have a string on the right side and I can concat to string. What would happen is ultimately the guy from the left joins the guy with the right as a string because this can concatenate. Okay, but when you come and talk about the multiplication operator, okay, this moves from left, it goes towards the right and it sees string 4. Okay, now TypeScript, the JavaScript type say, by I cannot multiply a number with string. Okay, what this will do, this will try to convert itself to number. Okay, there is no magic, there is no by default, there is nothing, there is a logic. Okay, because plus is overloaded to do concatenation and addition both, It is trying to concatenate because string is a valid data type in JavaScript and plus can be used on it. So on any place, any time, अजीत सिंह, अगर ये ABC के बाद में 1-2000 होता, इसके अंदर 1000 होता, इसके अंदर 1000 नहीं होता, कुछ भी होता, तो ये concatenate हो जाता. ठीक है? तो राहुल,
Yes, sir.
what will happen in this case? What do you think should be the output?
Sir, what is the console actually?
A plus B.
It will 100 plus 100. It will not give you 200.
Kyun? Even though if it has a number value inside the string, it knows that I can concatenate using a plus operator. Okay. But the sentiment will change when I do multiplication. Okay. The sentiment changed.
Yes, sir. That was I mean to say that if we like apply another operator, it will not like the case with the whatever it is happening with the plus operator.
Correct. Because plus is a special scenario where it can concatenate two strings.
Yes,
also.
yes.
Okay. There is a valid there is a valid explanation to everything. The only thing is we need to understand it. There are few exceptions in JavaScript. I understand that. Okay. But yes, we were talking about type coercion. Okay. Okay. Rahul, since you're unmuted, can you tell me what will happen if I write where A equals to 1, where B equals to true?
It will give you 2.
Why?
If you plus this.
Why?
Because true contains the 1 value and false contains the 0 value. So it automatically gives you that 2. It is like applying that Boolean conversion.
Very good. Amazing. Amazing. Okay. So this guy converts to the Boolean 0, 1 and it can add itself to any number. Okay. So that is the reason why and how types work. Okay. So you have to understand this types when it comes from numbers, and you have to change your context a little bit when it goes to the if else loop. Okay. We'll definitely talk about how if else works. Okay. It has some other, it has a little bit different aspect when it comes to when it comes to the comparisons. Okay. When that if has some condition and it has to be, if it is supposed to pick up any kind of Boolean output, it works very differently here, there. But in general, JavaScript, this is the type coercion that we generally see. Okay. And these are the funniest questions which are asked mostly in interviews. So if anyone has a specific question on what is like coercion or where does it work, let me know. Okay. Ajay, you have a question. I'll try to unmute you. Just check if you can.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Ajay, ask your question.
Sir, how number coercion is work? Because in this case, you said in first case where A is equal to 100, B is equal to 100. First one is string. Then it gives 100 as output. So what about number coercion? How it works?
See, it will try to convert the values which can be, which has some kind of logic behind it. Okay, which has some kind of, if I talk from an operator's perspective, see, have a look here. I am using an operator. Okay, this operation can be applied to two numbers only. Okay, that is the point when A realized that I'll have to convert myself to number. Okay. Vishal, I'll definitely answer your question. This is the best interview question everyone asks. Okay, and it also has an answer. Okay, don't worry about it. I remember this question. Cool. So this is a very simple thing when you're trying to play with operators, right? Things are a little different. Okay, this type will convert to number because this operator can only work on two numbers. Take it this way. Okay, look at the operator and then see what can happen ahead of it. When it wants to concatenate, when it wants to multiply, when it wants to divide. This is also valid for division as well. Okay, so if I do it with division, right? So this is still valid for divisions. Okay, so this will try to understand like what is the operator type and what are my operand types of, and then based on that it will give you output. Okay, if we talk about a very simple scenario where we had this 1 and true, so this automatically converted itself to 1 because concatenation or addition can only happen on strings and numbers. So this had to convert. Okay, I think there are just 3 minutes left.
Okay, sir. I have one last doubt.
Yeah,
Can
sure.
I,
Yeah.
सर वो जो केस में है ना a प्लस b कंसिडर हमेशा एक स्ट्रिंग है और एक नंबर है, तो हमेशा वो स्ट्रिंग को कोर्जन ही करता है क्या?
कोएर्शन नहीं करता, प्लस ऑपरेटर ओवरलोडेड है, यही मैं समझा रहा हूँ। प्लस कॉन्कैटिनेट कर सकता है।
हाँ, कॉन्केटिनेट ही करता है क्या?
हाँ, कॉन्कैटिनेट ही करेगा, अगर स्ट्रिंग दिखेगा तो कॉन्कैटिनेट करेगा।
अच्छा, और केस इधर मल्टीप्लाई होगा तो नंबर कोर्जन होगा,
हाँ,
डिवाइड होगा या मल्टीप्लाई होगा?
राइट, एग्जैक्टली।
या गॉट इट. आई लाइक द वे यू आर टीचिंग.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Sachin, is there any other operator like plus? See, I don't remember these things. Let me see if I can help you out. I do not remember around plus, but not sure. Yeah, so I'll take the last question for the day. Why 0.1 plus 0.2 is not equals to 0.3? Okay. So as a very good software engineer, I'll go to Google and I'll search the answer for it. Okay. So let's go to Google and ask Google, what can it help me out with? Some problem. Okay. Why 0.1 plus 0.2 is not equals to 0.3? So Vishal, I just want to ask you that before asking this, did you try to understand the logic that was written here?
Yes sir, थोड़ा
थोड़ा समझ में आया?
Yes sir.
ठीक है, कैसा रहता है कि मेरे को भी देखो मैथ्स, आई हैड लर्नड मैथ्स व्हेन आई वाज इन इंजीनियरिंग, इट्स बीन लाइक 7-8 years, but I remember one thing there. Okay, or I guess you all guys understand how numbers are stored in computer. You all understand, right? If I write number 1, okay, there is something called as 32 bit, there is something called as 16 bits, okay, there is
Yes
something
sir.
called as 64 bits. Okay, and we all know that inside computer world everything is zeros and ones, right? So when I write number 1, it actually populates this bit array it has for zeros, and at the end it will put 1. If I want to write 2, the binary mathematics comes in, which is 1 0. If I write 3, it becomes 0 1 1. If I write 4, it becomes 1 0 0. Okay, this is nothing but a representation of off and on, true and false. Sachin, these both are false, this is true. Okay, and if in this bit array, this is the pattern, we consider this to have value 100. Not 100, sorry, we consider this to have value 4 in the numeric system that we follow. Okay, so what happens is, in this concept of binary numbers, when you have decimal places, okay, right now we are talking about integer. As soon as decimal come into picture, like 4.25 or something like this, okay, things look good, they are very decent. Okay, how are these stored? Again, there will be another bit array which will store this 2 and 25 value, and then with that base, these values are stored in the bit arrays. Okay, so when this operator comes into picture, 0.3 and 0.4, okay, so this doesn't follows our way of storing numbers, which is 4.25 or 0.7. This will actually have 2 bit arrays, okay, getting added toward both to each other. And this is not a special case in JavaScript. In any programming languages which follows this bit array kind of stuff, you will never get an answer 0.7. You will always get something like I think 666 or 77707 something, and like let's see the output of this. Okay, so in this case, what has actually happened is the bit array onto the right portion. Okay, the bit array for the decimal portion got added. Okay, and the numbers started to get added until and unless that bits got available. So if I had this bit system, there is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16. Let me just copy paste. Okay, so this has 18 bits of representation. Okay, so if I think that my system was say 32 bits, few of the representation has gone towards the decimal and few of the definition has got towards the integer and for the base sign. So there is also something like plus and minus, negative integers, positive integers. Okay, so the moment it started to represent itself back to this point, it converted itself to this format that we are able to see here. Okay, so instead of showing that 17 zeros, 16 zeros and 16 this, it showed just 0, 1 here and then the value down on the right side. So this is all with the base of binary operations, and then it works according to that. Okay, so I am pretty much sure that no one sane will ask you this question ever in interview, until unless you appear for a company where the interviewer has some ego problem or he tries to just go through generic questions that are asked in the interviews. Okay, so this has nothing to do with JavaScript. This is almost equal. This is almost a, you cannot say a bug, but yeah, it's a way how computer does its binary operations. And this is how the operation output comes out in most of the languages. Okay, so this is mainly due to the binary operations or binary addition units. Okay, guys. So that's all for the day. I hope you enjoyed the session and understood whatever was taught. And I hope this adds some value to your life and interview experience and your coding experiences as well. All right. Thank you very much for being a great audience. Bye-bye. Take care. Code has already been sent in the link. You can check it inside the chat. You can search me with the name. You can contact your batch coordinator also. She'll let you know.